Chapter 255 to 260. Looking at the deformed clones floating in the nutrition tank, Kuroto can't help but cry tears of blood. The genes of the Uchiha clan are poison, muttered Kuroto in helplessness. In the previous few weeks, Kuroto has been able to collect cells of more than a dozen Uchiha, including Itachi and Sasuke, of course with Shirsui's help, and even asked Shinichi to send his cells, which he complied with and did. After obtaining these cells, Kuroto again carried out several gene fusion experiments, which consumed a lot of his time, energy, and resources. Finally, 3 samples survived the fusion process and were embedded in the cultivation nutrition tank for the development. After obtaining 3 samples that fused successfully, Kuroto thought that at least one of these samples will develop into a good enough clone that Kuroto will be able to use as his fire nature clone, but reality taught him a cruel lesson. All 3 samples developed into deformed bodies. The first body has its body parts distorted, all facial features and limbs are misaligned as well. The second one has developed into a fat lump of meatball with multiple limbs, eyes, mouth, and nose sprouting off from all over the body, but no bone within it whatsoever. The third has 3 heads, each head with 3 eyes, a flat nose, and a mouth that doesn't seem to have lips at all. Moreover, there are 4 sets of arms, but just a single leg to complement that. Looking at the 3 clones that looked more horrifying than monsters, Kuroto could only sigh helplessly. This series of experiments and clone creation cost him a lot, much more than the initial budget limit Kuroto set for creating the fire nature clone, but even after tens of thousands of attempts, not even a single clone came out which Kuroto can determine as good enough. And he can't continue to keep doing the experiments any longer, as that would not only consume too many funds, a lot of his time and efforts, with not even a certain 0.0001% chance of success. Sigh, and here I thought that my and Shirsui's genes are incompatible. Never did I expect that my genes are completely incompatible with the entire Uchiha clan. In fact, my and Shirsui's genes turn out to be somewhat compatible based on the one clone that developed successfully, even though its gender changed to that of a female. Kuroto sighed with emotions as his gaze shifted towards one of the large nutrition tanks at the corner of this laboratory. This large nutrition tank obviously contains the female clone, which was submerged in the green medicinal water to maintain a proper supply of necessary nutrition. Walking towards the clone, Kuroto mulled over the thought, whether he should use this female clone or not. There is no doubt that by looks of the clone the Hyuga genes are dominant, as the appearance is that of a typical Hyuga kunoichi. As a traditional shinobi clan, the males of the Hyuga clan are all well-groomed and mannered individuals, while the females are mostly elegant, dignified, and somewhat soft by nature. This is the case with almost all of the Hyuga clansmen. The Hyuga genetics are obviously very good, so the appearance of the Hyuga clansmen are generally good. Of course, Kuroto is no exception to this, as his looks rivaled Kakashi during their academy years, and has only got better ever since all his gene combinations activated. And the Uchiha clan is not much different either. The males are mostly sharp and domineering, and because of the passive effects of Sharingan, their eyes are generally piercing by nature, and their natural aura is cold. Coincidentally enough, the female clone in the large nutrition tank combines the good aspects of both the Uchiha and the Hyuga. It has the elegant and dignified appearance of a Hyuga kunoichi, while there is also that sharpness, coldness, and unapproachable aura of a typical Uchiha. For this reason, the female clone exudes an extremely heroic, noble, elegant, and proud temperament. Well, all that aside, Kuroto is still unable to figure out just what could be the reason that the clone turned into a female instead of a male. After all, the chromosome pair that defines the gender of a person should obviously be that of a male, as both him and Shirsui are males, but still the clone turned into a woman. There is a guess in his mind. However, Kuroto is not sure whether that is actually true or not. In terms of their most general relation to one another, Yin represents the female, while Yang represents the male, and since this clone still has too much Yin chakra even after Kuroto washed it out, so it's possible that too much Yin chakra probably caused a mutation in the gene structure of the bud and henceforth, changed its gender. It is just a guess, and there is no solid evidence to prove whether this theory is correct or not. And Kuroto also can't figure out what sort of impact will this female clone have in his big project. And next is the matter of stats of this clone. Because the sample cells used to cultivate this clone were severely damaged, so its basic stats are not very good, at least not as good as the Suijin clone. This also means that the difficulty of training this clone will be much higher than that of Suijin clone. This is the second reason why Kuroto had a certain sense of rejection towards this clone, but now that he is left with no other choice due to repeated failures, so Kuroto has to go with the female clone. The repeated failures have also made him understand that he can't touch yin and yang chakra nature so early, with his current knowledge, experience, or the extent of technical means he has access to at the moment. With that understood, Kuroto took out the female clone from the nutrition tank and placed it on the test bench. After recording all the physical measurements and body stats, Kuroto used Tenseigan Soul Descend and transferred his soul into the female clone body without much hesitation. As soon as his main body's eyelids closed, the female clone lying on the test bench opened her eyes. At the start, Kuroto felt a bit strange, the feeling was a bit different. Kuroto ignored this feeling for now and proceeded to slowly get up from the test bench. Took a while and Kazakage puppet's support, but he, or I guess she, for now, managed to get up. A few checkups, body stretches, and coordinative movements later, Kuroto walked towards the mirror and observed the body. He was, of course, naked and observed all the muscle movements of this body in the mirror to get familiar with it. By now he has also understood why did he feel slightly different. It's because of the extra weight of a pair of breasts that he was unfamiliar with up to now, and some of the other parts that are different in females compared to males. All that aside, what surprised Kuroto was the coordinative system of this body. He did not feel any opposition while transferring his soul, which was unusual, as there is slight resistance at the start. This clone seems very much capable of adapting to his soul. But it's also not surprising at the same time, as the gender of a body has nothing to do with its adaptability to a soul. This can easily be proven from the fact that Orochimaru also once transferred his soul into a female body during the Konoha Crush arc and even fought against Sandaime Hokage at that time, and the rest is already known. As such, it can be concluded that the gender of a body has nothing to do with its compatibility with a soul. Putting aside those thoughts, Kuroto continued carrying out the auditory and coordinative movements. After he felt that basic movements were no longer a problem, Kuroto focused on his eyes. When his soul was not transferred to this body, the pair of eyes was just a collection of cells. In simple words, they were semi-finished, as was the case with Suijin clone. He was also surprised even after transferring his soul to this clone, there was not much change in the eyes in the deactivated state. They are pretty much the same as Suijin's pair of Byakugan. This was again quite unexpected. After all, both Uchiha and Hyuga are clans with dojutsu-type Kekkei Genkai, so Kuroto expected a bit of mutation. Surprisingly, Uchiha genes did not have any effects on the Byakugan. But upon thinking a little, this is also normal. After all, the ratio of Hyuga and Uchiha cells present in this clone is 99:1, and Hyuga bloodline is no weaker than Uchiha, therefore, the chances of mutation are a bit small. Then Kuroto muttered in distress, I don't know whether this clone body will be able to bear the burden of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan? This is another issue, and Kuroto doesn't seem to have a solution to solve this problem yet. I guess I will try to create one more fire nature clone in the future, but before I improve my knowledge and other means to be able to do so, let's develop this clone. Kuroto feels that he should be prepared in advance. While developing this clone, he is also going to improve his knowledge and other means, and see if he can create one more clone. With that decision, next Kuroto wrapped some bandages over the pubic area and the pair of breasts to keep them affixed and not become a problem while carrying out intensive movements and training. And after putting over on a simple robe he found in the lab, he walked barefoot towards the detached laboratory where Uchiha Ryota was detained. Byakugan. In the vision of Byakugan, Kuroto found that the two pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan in the eye sockets of Uchiha Ryota are already past the preliminary fusion. And because two eyeballs are midway through the fusion process, so together they appear to be a little bloated and have an overall elliptical outline. Sigh, the speed of fusion is still much slower than I expected. Shaking his head in disappointment, Kuroto left the laboratory. At this time, Kuroto thought on his way towards the main lab, on genetic fusion technology. Orochimaru is also an expert, maybe I should ask some knowledge and insight from him. Gene fusion is not a new field of science, as gene fusion experiments were even carried out during the era of Nidaime Hokage's rule. After the death of Shodaime-sama, many of the Senju clansmen volunteered in the experimentations. To be able to inherit Shodaime-sama's would release Kekkei Genkai by fusing his cells into their body, but without exception, all of them failed. These experiments were, of course, carried out in secrecy and the general public is not aware of this knowledge. After Nidaime-sama's death, Sandaime-sama terminated these experiments, but they were still secretly carried out by Shimura Danzo. And it was Shimura Danzo who tempted Orochimaru to start his own research about the wood release. Yamato is the result of these experiments. Not only did he survive the fusion experiment, but even managed to awaken the wood release. Shimura Danzo also uses Shodaime-sama cells, which is another result of those experiments. It must not be forgotten that Hashirama cells are countless times more terrifying than cancer cells. They can completely swallow another person's cells, so the difficulty of Hashirama cells fusion is much higher than the Uchiha cells. And the fact that Yamato managed to successfully fuse with the Hashirama cells does not only showcase his specialties but also shows Orochimaru's expertise in the field of gene fusion. So, his guidance would only benefit Kuroto. But as you know, Orochimaru is a snake and one should always be careful when dealing with a snake. But if I contact Orochimaru, he would obviously ask Haku to be sent back. What should I do then? For the past few months, Haku has been constantly living in the underground residence. There is a reason why Kuroto has not sent him back to Orochimaru yet. It is because Haku is not only aware of the fact that Kuroto has been trying to learn ice release, but is also aware that Kuroto can use some strange technique to attach his soul to others, which happened when he used Tenseigan's soul descend to leech his soul to Haku's body to experience ice release in personal. As such, once Haku returns to Orochimaru, it is difficult to guarantee that Haku will not explain what he experienced here upon being asked by Orochimaru. With Orochimaru's cunningness, as long as Orochimaru learns that Kuroto has been trying to learn ice release, and is capable of transferring his soul, then it won't take him much time to put two and two together, and he will immediately realize that there is some deep connection between him and Suijin of Amatsukami. And when that happens, Orochimaru might even be able to guess the true identity of Suijin, which will give him a perfect understanding of the secret behind Amatsukami. This is something Kuroto does not want, so he has to think of some other ways out of this situation. Occupied by so many thoughts, Kuroto soon returned to the main lab, and after transferring back his soul to his main body, he put the female clone inside the large nutrition tank again, then compiled all the data of the gene fusion experiment he carried out in the past few weeks. After doing so, he returned to his home. Next day. Today it was Kuroto and Shursui's turn to keep a watch over and ensure the safety of the protagonist of the canon, as per the mission assigned to Umbu Team 11, by Sandame-sama. Uzumaki Naruto, who is already 4 years old, does not like staying in the lonely home he is given. No one other than him lives in that lonesome place, as such he spends most of his time walking through the village. But because of the rumors of the demon fox being sealed inside him, and the hatred people of Konoha harbored for Kyubi made those people direct their hatred towards the young Naruto, as such he has always been rejected, hated, and ignored by most of the villagers. This has made Naruto's childhood lack the love and attention that a child needs and made him always be lonely without getting any answer as to why he is treated as such. Sigh. Standing on the tree, Shursui sighed while looking at the little Naruto walking through the streets in the cold night. Naruto's head was low, and sadness in his eyes. Kuroto also looked at Naruto with complicated emotions. Kuroto knows that he will never be able to understand Naruto's pain. After all, Kuroto is at least aware of who were his parents, what kind of people were they like, and so many more things. Even after their death, Yui has always been there for him, so he has never truly felt lonely. But Naruto's case is completely different. As the son of Yondaime Hokage and the princess of the Uzumaki clan, Naruto should actually be the prince of Konoha if anything. Moreover, both his parents sacrificed their lives to protect Konoha, and the fact that Kyubi has been sealed inside him makes him the hero of the village, yet he suffers such treatment at the hands of the villagers. It's really inhuman to make such a young child go through such a life and suffer through such coldness and hatred from others. In fact, it wouldn't be wrong to say that it is Konoha's luck that Naruto did not go dark and kept up his positive attitude to seek everyone's acknowledgement, rather than slaughtering them coldly. Whoosh. Whoosh. While Kuroto was busy in thoughts, two figures appeared beside Kuroto. They are none other than Kakashi and Guy, who are also dressed in their Umbu uniforms. Kuroto glanced at the two of them and asked, curiously, "What are you two doing here? It's still not the time to change the shift. Did something happen?" Kakashi and Guy removed their mask for a while and said, "Right, something serious happened." Kuroto and Shursui also removed their respective masks, and Shursui asked in confusion, "Something really happened?" He was stunned, then asked, "So, what happened exactly?" Kakashi spoke with a sullen face. Amatsukami recently made their move. This time they attacked Reikage Dano and his entourage, who were on their way to the location discussed by the 5 Kage for the upcoming Gakage summit. In this attack, both the guards that were accompanying him suffered. What? Both Kuroto and Shursui were taken aback by the sudden news and exclaimed at the same time. Immediately, both looked at each other and asked the other party with a shocked and doubtful face, "Amatsukami? Amatsukami has been making their moves recently?" But seeing that both of them asked the same question and both of them had the same, shocked, confused and doubtful expression, they shook their heads instinctively. I don't know. Kakashi didn't think too much about Kuroto and Shirsui's behavior, and their shocked and doubtful expression. According to him, both Kuroto and Shirsui were probably asking the other party if he knew this information, so not minding their exclaim, Kakashi continued, Hokage-sama is worried that Amatsukami will conspire some plans against the Kyuubi which is sealed inside Uzumaki Naruto, so assigned more Umbu to ensure Uzumaki Naruto's safety, so from now, entire Team 11 will keep watch over him. Together and our shifts will be changed with other Umbu teams during the 6-hour break we will get. Both Shirsui and Kuroto nodded, and after a while of silence, Kuroto asked, is Reikage Dano alright? Reikage is safe and sound. The target of this attack was not Reikage Dano but his 2 guards. Kakashi said. Kuroto frowned and muttered, but why would Amatsukami attack Reikage's guards? Was there anything special about them? Kakashi thought a little and said, I am not sure. One of the guards following him was the Jonin who came to Konoha with the Kumo Peace delegation, while the other one was a user of Storm Release Kekkai Genkai, and he was called Rai. Shirsui's gaze flickered, I know him. Shirsui's words attracted the attention of the rest of the team, seeing their questioning eyes which asked for further explanation. Shirsui said, it was during the Third Great Shinobi War. During one of the missions, our team encountered another 3-man team of Kumogakure. At that time, I fought against Rai, who was the strongest of his team. Our fight did not last long, but during that brief confrontation I was unable to take the advantage, and at that time, I already had 3 Tomo Sharingan, so it wouldn't be wrong to say that Rai was very strong even at that time. By now, he should have already been an elite Jonin. Kakashi nodded, he is indeed an elite Jonin based on the information we have, and it is still unclear as to why would Amatsukami attack these 2 Jonin. Rai's status is unclear. It's possible that he is already dead, but we can't know for certain as there is no corpse to identify, but we do know that the other Jonin is dead, as his corpse was found, so we are assuming that Amatsukami's target was Rai in specific, and there is a possibility that he is still alive. Guy muttered with a dejected face, in the face of Amatsukami, I am afraid that Rai. But before Guy could complete his sentence, Kuroto asked, is there any information about which member of Amatsukami attacked this Rai fellow? Asked by Kuroto, Kakashi took out a few documents from his shinobi bag and passed them over to Kuroto and Shirsui. According to Reikage Dano's description, the member of Amatsukami that appeared this time had a strange face and body. Upon listening to Kakashi's words, Kuroto focused his attention on the document that listed the following information. Name, Yama. Designation, the leader of Amatsukami. Suspected chakra nature code, IN. Appearance, unknown. Identity, unknown. Strength, unknown. Records of battles, no information available. Danger level, unknown. Name, Suijin. Designation, member of Amatsukami. Suspected chakra nature code, water. Appearance, unknown. Abilities, uses Ice Release Kekkai Genkai of Yuki clan at an unusually high mastery level, specializes in water release ninjutsu, taijutsu, bokujutsu, etc. Identity, unknown member of the Yuki clan. Strength, strength level of a Kage class shinobi. Records of battles, fought on equal footing with the Sandaime Hokage of Konoha. Danger level, S+. Name, Homasubi. Designation, member of Amatsukami. Suspected chakra nature code, fire. Appearance, unknown. Abilities, possess Uchiha clan's Manjikyu Sharingan, wields unknown golden fire, ninjutsu, jinjutsu, Uchiha shurikenjutsu, taijutsu, etc. Identity, unknown member of the Uchiha clan. Strength, strength level of a Kage class shinobi. Records of battles, fought on equal footing against Uchiha Shirsui of the Uchiha clan, as well as against Kumogakure's AB combo. Danger level, S+. Name, unknown. Designation, member of Amatsukami. Suspected chakra nature code, wind. Appearance, unknown. Abilities, possess magnet release. Identity, unknown defected shinobi from Sunagakure. Strength, strength level of a Kage class shinobi. Records of battles, no records. Danger level, S+. Name, unknown. Designation, member of Amatsukami. Suspected chakra nature code, earth. Appearance, strange similar to a plant. Abilities, unknown. Identity, unknown. Strength, unknown. Records of battles, no records. Danger level, unknown. Kuroto frowned as he read the detail. Is it the last member who did it? Kakashi shook his head. There is no confirmation. This ninja led away Raikage, but it is still unclear whether he is actually responsible for the disappearance of Rai, or if there was the involvement of other members of Amatsukami. There are only a handful of people in the shinobi who would dare to attack or cause trouble with the Raikage. Kuroto is no exception to this, as even he is unwilling to cause conflict with Raikage unless absolutely necessary, so the identity of the attacker is not so hard to guess. In all likelihood, it has to be the handiwork of Akatsuki, and this guess is more than likely to be true because there is mention of this member with plant-like appearance, which has to be Zetsu without a doubt. But Kuroto is a little puzzled as to why would Akatsuki attack and intercept Raikage and his two guards? Moreover, even if they did attack, why would they want to blame this upon Amatsukami? Are they worried about something? That should probably not be the case, right? Thought Kuroto, but he wasn't so sure. At this time, Shursui, who has also read the information, asked Kakashi, there is too little information about the enemy here. Did Raikage not fight the new suspected member of Amatsukami? Kakashi shook his head awkwardly. Raikage was actually too impatient and rashly chased after this member of Amatsukami and was deliberately led away. Neither was he able to catch this member nor did he have any battle with him. So, there is not much we know about this enemy. But it can be determined that Amatsukami's target was probably Rai. After a pause, Shursui continued, Rai's life and death status are unknown, but what could be the reason that Amatsukami went after Rai? Weren't their target the 9 Bijou, so why to attack a non-Jinchuriki? After all, we do know that Amatsukami does not attack any unrelated party, so why attack him? Was it just the bounty on his head, or did they hope to extract any information out of him, like the probable location of the Jinchuriki, or maybe the secrets of storm release? Kakashi said, both are possible. The second reason is more than likely to be the case, based on the fact that Amatsukami has already kidnapped 2 Uchiha shinobi. It wouldn't be wrong to judge that Amatsukami is also targeting shinobi with different Kekkai Genkai too, but we can't loosen our guards as who knows when they will start to target Bijou. Dai continued, the threat on Naruto is more eminent. If Amatsukami dares to openly attack Raikage's entourage just for Kekkai Genkai user, unlike the other times when they carried out sneak attacks, there is no telling whether they will again sneak inside Konoha and try to steal the Kyuubi. As such, Hokage-sama has added more manpower to ensure Uzumaki Naruto's safety. Storm release, huh? Hearing Kakashi and Gai's words, Kuroto suddenly recalled Hirako, and thought, is it possible that Akatsuki's attack on this storm release user is related to Hirako? Kuroto is not sure. This is because it's too early for Hirako to act. Even in the original series, Hirako started to steal Kekkai Genkai when Naruto's generation had already grown up into teenage. It was also at that time that Hirako completed his imperfect chimera technique. But Kuroto has to also take into account that there have already been too many changes in the timeline. As such, the sudden attack and disappearance of this storm release user at the hands of Akatsuki does lead to the possibility. Since Hirako has joined Akatsuki, so this could be the only reason. But how come Hirako managed to perfect chimera technique so early? Is it because he joined Akatsuki and got all the help he needed to complete that technique? Thought Kuroto. This could be the only possible case. After completing their shift, Team 11 separated and went to their respective homes. Shursui and Kuroto were going in the same direction, and after Kakashi and Gai left, he asked eagerly, Kuroto-san, what's going on? Are there other members in Amatsukami? If there were other members in Amatsukami, then why would I not inform you about them in advance? Snorted Kuroto, and continued, the person who attacked Raikage and his entourage is someone else pretending to be a member of Amatsukami. Their goal is obviously to put the blame of their actions on our head. Shursui was immediately angry, scoundrels. Kuroto-san, let's find them. Kuroto glanced at Shursui and said, don't be in such a hurry. Then asked after a pause, first answer this question of mine, what is the objective of Amatsukami? Shursui was confused as to why would Kuroto-san ask this, but he answered nonetheless, to solve the conflict between the Uchiha clan and the village? Kuroto nodded, that's not exactly correct, but it is one of the objectives in the big game, so does it really matter whether someone is putting the blame of their action upon Amatsukami? Although their intentions are obviously malicious towards us, by doing so, they are actually helping us further increase the threat of Amatsukami in the eyes of everyone, so this is obviously very helpful for us. Shursui thought a little and said, right, the more threat Amatsukami poses, the more concerned the clan and village will grow towards them, so the internal conflict will continue to get delayed as time passes. Exactly. Kuroto nodded. But these people are doing such things, and using our name to put on the blame, I always feel a bit uncomfortable. Are we going to let them do as they wish? Kuroto said casually, I have a few things in mind that we will be doing to deal with this problem, so you don't need to worry about this too much. What we should focus on now is to ensure Uzumaki Naruto's safety, because Akatsuki will definitely target Kyubi. Shursui nodded as he understands the importance of Kyubi for Konoha, and Uzumaki Naruto, who hosts the Kyubi, must be protected at all costs. With this final understanding, Shursui bid Kuroto farewell and returned to his home. Kuroto, who also returned to his home, pondered a little. After biting his finger and printing the hand signs, Kuroto tapped his hand on the ground and muttered, summoning jutsu. Poof. Followed by a puff of white smoke, an all too familiar orange cat appeared before Kuroto that didn't look familiar at all. Kuroto frowned seeing this. It's because this orange cat's orange hair was covered in some stripes. These stripes were black in color over the orange fur, making the cat unrecognizable at the first glance. Even Kuroto was a little confused and doubtful whether this is the same greedy cat. You are. Kasai, who was suddenly summoned by Kuroto, looked a bit annoyed and said, Meow, I am dyeing my hairs today, so I would not be delivering any message for today. As soon as he heard that voice, Kuroto was sure that this fake tiger is definitely the same Kasai, and asked with a smile, You gave me a good shock, Kasai. For a moment I thought that a real tiger appeared in my room. Those stripes look so real on you, said Kuroto in a fake surprise. Really? Hearing from Kuroto, the cat was suddenly joyful and happily curled on the table. Do they really look real? I guess I didn't do anything wrong after agreeing to his offer. The tiger stripes are dyed markings. I felt that when I get these markings, I will look intimidating and mighty. Who fooled this stupid cat? Kuroto thought, but did not speak it out loud, and said, Anyway, I called you because I want you to pass on a message to Shinichi. The cat didn't seem to have heard what Kuroto spoke as it was busy daydreaming about how mighty and ferocious it will look with the tiger stripes. It seems that hair dye shop is pretty good. You can also visit it and get some tiger stripes in the future if you want. I am telling you, you will also look intimidating. Meow. Punch, crack. Kuroto beat the table to bring Kasai out of his daydream and spoke. Did you hear what I just said? I said that I called you this time because I want you to pass on a message to Shinichi for me. Kasai denied immediately. Meow. I have to go back and complete the dyeing of my hair. Consider me unavailable until then. As soon as the cat spoke, Kuroto immediately took out 1,000 Ryo bill and put it in front of Kasai. How about now? Asked Kuroto. A tangled expression was evident on Kasai's face. It still didn't faze it. Looking back and forth between the 1,000 Ryo bill on the table and him, Kasai shook his head. Gulp. I have to dye my hair. Greedy cat. Before Kasai could complete that sentence, Kuroto took out another 1,000 Ryo bill and placed over the previous one. How about now? Do you still have to dye your hair? As soon as 2 bills were present in front, the cat's eyes were glued to them but still shook his head. Ha ha ha, don't be funny, bribing me won't get you. Before Kasai could complete his words, Kuroto again took out another bill of 1,000 Ryo and put it over the previous 2, and sighed while gritting his teeth. I am sorry. I didn't hear you correctly, so what were you saying? By now the cat already had stars shining in his eyes and saliva literally dripping from the corners of his mouth. As soon as Kuroto asked the question, the cat fiercely grabbed the 3,000 Ryo and immediately put them inside the small bag hung around the neck while patting the chest with a determined expression. Meow, you are of course a special exception to this. What message needs to be passed on to Shinichi? Give it to me. I swear in the name of Nakoba that it will be delivered in 1 minute. One of the many training grounds of the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Hiragi, who had been training for the whole day, dropped his sword on the ground and wiped off the sweat with a hand towel. The previous encounter with Homasubi has become a shame for Hiragi. Being defeated is another thing altogether, but being treated as nothing more than trash, and yet not being able to take a single step in the face of the enemy has become a thorn in Hiragi's heart. He has not been able to let go of that look he received from Homasubi. To think that I would be intimidated by just a mere glance of his, it's unforgivable. Whenever he thinks of that scene, Hiragi not only feels anger at Homasubi but also upon himself, but he is ashamed of himself and his weakness. First I lost to Hyuga Kuroto, and now this Homasubi. So, to make sure that such a thing does not happen again, Hiragi has been constantly training whenever he is on a break or holiday from his regular Konoha military police duties. The effort he has been putting in is obviously being paid off as Hiragi feels that his strength is steadily improving. And this has made him feel somewhat better, but he's still too far from reaching Homasubi's level, who can fight against Kumo's AB brothers at the same time. After having wiped off the sweat, Just as Hiragi was about to draw his sword that rested on the ground, an unusual spiraling whirl appeared in front of him. Hiragi was immediately cautious and asked, "Who are you?" He asked this because Hiragi saw a figure emerging out of the eye of the spiraling whirl. Somewhere in the land of Earth. Kicking the beaten and bruised-up person lying in front of them, Kakuzu said to Sasori, "If not for the requirement that Hirako needed him alive, I really want to dig out this guy's heart." There are only two things that Kakuzu desires, first is wealth and the other is heart. The desire of collecting as many good hearts as possible is almost instinctive to Kakuzu, therefore whenever Kakuzu encounters a strong shinobi in a battle, he will always have the urge to dig out their hearts. Sasori also has a bit of greed in his eyes. The steel release user was stronger than I expected, and dealing with him was more troublesome. He is actually quite strong. If made into a puppet I should be able to obtain a rare masterpiece. Even with Sasori's high standards, he has to acknowledge the strength of the steel release user in front of him. The fierce battle a while ago was not much difficult for Sasori or Kakuzu, but that was only because the steel release user knew nothing about their abilities, and was also affected by the poison that Sasori used. If not for that, then the battle might have been much difficult, as the opponent's extreme defense and endurance courtesy to steel release made him a shinobi who matched the toughness and defense of the current Raikage if not the previous one. After injecting the drug into the unconscious ninja's bloodstream, Kakuzu carried him by the neck and started walking towards the land of rain while muttering, "I hope that ritual would not destroy his heart." Sasori remained silent and walked next to Kakuzu. Somewhere in the land of bears. A ninja wearing torn rags was constantly running through the forest. Boom. 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 Suddenly a series of explosions sounded around him. The sound of the explosions soon subsided and the dust cleared. The shinobi who was running through the explosions suddenly turned around, threw several shuriken in the direction of the enemy, and after immediately printing the hand seals, he shouted, "Dark release, judgment." Whyish. Accompanied by heavy winds, the tornado of dark chakra shot from the hands of the ragged ninja and rushed towards the sky. Hirako, who was standing on the artificial bird, had a Glasgow grin at this moment. It was as if everything was going perfectly according to his plan. As the tornado of dark chakra was rushing towards him, the artificial bird slammed its wings fiercely and flew high up into the sky. Using the altitude to its advantage, it easily dodged the attack. Immediately as the tornado passed away, the artificial bird flapped its wings again and shot down countless feathers. Whyish. 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 The feathers collided with the earth at an extremely fast speed and were nailed to the ground as a kunai would. After having dodged multiple attacks for so long, the ragged ninja was panting and did not have much stamina left anymore, so when he saw another rain that covered hundreds of meters of territory in the range of the attack, he had a look of despair on his face. Soon, several of those feathers pierced through his body, and some were stuck on him. Then there was an explosion. Boom. When the smoke and dust settled and the view became clear, it could be seen that the whole forest suffered severe damage as almost all the area was burnt to crisp, implying that the explosion was large enough to destroy the forest, but strangely enough, there was no damage on the 1-meter vicinity where the ragged ninja lied in a pool of his own blood, although his life and death status was unknown at the moment. After the enemy was successfully incapacitated, Shino, who did not act throughout the battle, spoke in a complimentary tone. Using explosions and physical attacks was indeed the most effective method to deal with someone who can easily absorb ninjutsu using the dark release Kekkai Genkai. Hirako nodded. No, Kekkai Genkai is perfect. So long as one master the right method to deal with them, winning is pretty much determined. With those words, the bird descended on the ground. Shino jumped of the artificial bird and determined the state that the ragged ninja was in currently. After confirming that he was indeed alive, Shino injected the drug into the ragged ninja's bloodstream and then threw him on top of the artificial bird. The dark release Kekkai Genkai has been captured. Now all we need to do is to return to Amigakure and wait for the others to bring the Kekkai Genkai users that they were assigned to bring, but I still wonder whether it would be possible for the leader to capture Hatake Kakashi? Hirako firstly nodded, then said with a confident expression, "I don't think there is anything to worry about it. The leader has the eyes of Rikudo Sennin. Obviously Hatake Kakashi, who only has a Sharingan, would be no match to the leader, so obtaining the Sharingan shouldn't be much difficult. What I am more concerned about is steel release user. Both Sasori and Kakuzu are not the type to allow a good corpse to get away so easily. And then there is also some worry about the swift release user. If that person wants to escape, then stopping him is not so easy. Unless you have the same level of speed, then catching up to him is likely impossible for both Uchiha Shinchi and Biwa Juzo. Shino thought about it a little and said, I don't think that will be an issue, as Uchiha Shinichi and Biwa Juzo's duo undoubtedly has the best teamwork out of all the duos. Moreover, Uchiha Shinichi also has the Manjikyu Sharingan, so he should be able to figure out something together with Juzo who can use silent killing. Hirako also thought about what Shino said and then nodded. I suppose that is true. At this time, Shino asked, if all goes according to the plan, then when are you sure to start the ritual? Hirako said, there will be a celestial phenomenon at the end of next month, and if all the Kekii Genkai are successfully gathered, then I will try to complete the ritual ceremony during that celestial phenomenon. Shino's eyes flickered when he heard this, but masking it soon enough and not letting his thoughts be seen by Hirako, he said with a smile, I am really looking forward to seeing how things will change after this. One of the Uchiha training grounds. The strange arrival of the person immediately made Hiragi realize that the person in front of is not ordinary. He immediately activated his 3-tomo Sharingan, and vowed to himself, I will not let the same thing that happened the previous time repeat again. The figure emerged out of the spiraling whirl and looked at Uchiha Hiragi, had already raised his sword, activated his Sharingan, and stood in a battle-ready pose. Then he cast a deep look at the pair of Sharingan spinning in his eye sockets, and chuckled, you have a nice look in your eyes. Looking at the black robe with golden patterns and the orange spiral mask that the other person wore, Hiragi asked coldly, are you also a member of Amatsukami? Neither did the masked person, denied, nor did he agree. Where is Homasubi, where is he? With a roar, Hiragi dashed towards the masked person, and shouted, answer my question. In Hiragi's heart, Amatsukami is indeed a very strong organization, but Homasubi is the only person he is truly afraid of. As for other members of Amatsukami, Hiragi is not scared of them. The masked man chuckled, why the hurry? Why do you want to know where Homasubi is so ardently? Hiragi's eyes become colder, if you are here to play games, then you can die, for all I care. Finishing the sentence, he immediately reached next to the masked and waved his sword with all his strength. Wouch! Accompanied by the sound of whistling wind, Hiragi's sword traversed a perfect arc and slashed towards the masked man's throat. But suddenly something that Hiragi didn't anticipate happened. His attack that was supposed to have been too fast for the other party to be able to react, the attack that was meant to cleave off the enemy's neck of his torso in just one strike, that very same attack did not even give Hiragi any feedback that he cut through the flesh of the enemy. What happened was strange, the sword and him both passed right through the enemy without even making momentary contact with the enemy. It was as if he passed right through a projection. It was as if what stood before his was not a person but a projection. Huh? Hiragi was confused. Coming to a stop, Hiragi turned back and glanced at the place where the masked man or maybe some kind of projection stood. At this time, Hiragi had a puzzled look, and the 3-tomo in his Sharingan were spinning. He was trying to see if what stood before him was some kind of genjutsu. While Hiragi stood there in a stupor, the masked man also turned around and slowly walked towards him. Looking at the approaching masked man, and that similar indifferent and cold aura oozing off of him, Hiragi instinctively trembled, and muttered, why am I feeling like this? Why? Am I afraid of him? No. I am not afraid of him. But no matter how much Hiragi tried to reassure himself, his hand that carried the sword was shaking. Hiragi still gritted his teeth and raised his sword hand and waved fiercely, once, twice, thrice, fourth, fifth, again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, but no result. Every time the sword passed right through the masked man's body, it was as if he is not even present here, yet he was there, laughing coldly. What are you? Are you even a person or some kind of ghost? Shouted Hiragi in hysteria. Perhaps I am the death itself. Masked man muttered to no one. At this point, Hiragi has already started to back away. The sword in his hand dropped heavily to the ground. He turned around and wanted to run away, but is that even possible? The masked man grabbed Hiragi's collar, which did not allow Hiragi to take even a single step, and dragged him inside the spiraling whirl, regardless of all the resistance Hiragi tried to put. Amidst the sound of Hiragi's exclamation, shouts, and begging to let him go, his figure was distorted and disappeared into the spiraling whirl. After the disappearance of Hiragi, the masked man looked at the 4 faces carved on the Hokage mountain at the other end of the village and then disappeared in a similar whirl, leaving the place to the strange silence where only the sound of cicadas echoed. Hyuga Kuroto's home. Poof. With a cloud of white smoke, Kasai appeared before Kuroto and passed on a scroll to him. Kuroto took the scroll and passed 1,000 Ryo bills to the greedy cat. While the cat happily took the money and went away, Kuroto started reading the content written in the scroll, and after reading a bit, Kuroto's eyes narrowed as he muttered, "Sure enough, I was right." On the scroll sent by Shinichi, he briefly mentioned the recent task that was assigned to him and Biwa Juzo. The task was to capture a swift release Kekkei Genkai user in the land of Whirlpool. Firstly, storm release, and now swift release. Putting down the scroll from his hand, Kuroto's expression gradually became a solemn one. If hearing the news of the storm release Kekkei Genkai user disappearing led Kuroto to guess, but now that he received the brief summary of the task that Shinichi was assigned with clearly answers his doubts. Kuroto can surely conclude that this is being done under Hiroko's directives. It seems that Hiroko has indeed completed his imperfect chimera technique. The reason why Kuroto was not in a hurry to obtain the chimera technique was that he believed that it would take Hiroko at least a decade or more to be able to complete his imperfect chimera technique. Kuroto didn't really expect that Hiroko, who has joined Akatsuki, would complete his chimera technique so early. This was beyond Kuroto's calculations and planning, and now that things have gone a little off track, Kuroto is caught off guard. Since Hiroko has already targeted storm release and swift release, then he must have also been eyeing other Kekkei Genkai. After a pause, Kuroto continued his thought, with Akatsuki organization assisting him in his plans of capturing the Kekkei Genkai users he has been targeting. It would be impossible for the targets to escape his palms. It's also possible that he has already succeeded in gathering all of them. As Kuroto though this, a sudden sense of crisis emerged in his heart. Kuroto has to brainstorm a method to get his hands on that imperfect chimera technique, otherwise, it would be very difficult to obtain the information on the chimera technique once Hiroko completes his Kekkei Genkai stealing/absorption plan. It must not be forgotten that in the original series, Hiroko's strength took a massive boost even after he fell short of success and failed to merge the last Kekkei Genkai, which was Sharingan, so even with his Kekkei Genkai absorption plan unsuccessful, he and his bird alone were easily able to overpower the combined might of the Konoha 11 and Kakashi. And if Hiroko managed to complete his Kekkei Genkai absorption plan, then there is no telling just how high will his strength evolve. When that happens, it would be very difficult to extract out the secrets of the chimera technique from the hands of Hiroko. As such, Kuroto must do what he can to get his hands on the chimera technique, which is the most crucial step for his project godhood. So, after making up his mind, Kuroto again wrote a message on a scroll that will be sent to Shinichi. The content of the scroll was an order for Shinichi to pay close attention to Hiroko's every move and keep Kuroto notified. Now Kuroto is obviously very anxious about which Kekkei Genkai Hiroko is targeting, whether they are the same as in the original series or is there some degree of deviation. SAS he succeeded in obtaining all of them, and lastly, when and where will the ritual to absorb the Kekkei Genkai take place? Will it be the very same Mount Shumazen or some other place? Next day. As soon as Kuroto and Shursui met for their regular duty to keep a watch over Uzumaki Naruto, Kuroto noticed that Shursui had a sullen face. Curious, Kuroto asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen in the clan?" Shursui spoke with a resentful tone. "Kuroto-san, do you remember Uchiha Haragi?" "Uchiha Haragi? Wasn't he one of the challenges that the Uchiha clan sent?" Kuroto answered, as he recalled Uchiha Haragi. And not long ago, when Kuroto disguised himself as Homasubi, it was Haragi who he encountered. As such, Kuroto does remember Uchiha Haragi. Shursui nodded and said, "Yes, him. He disappeared last night. Only his sword was found in one of the clan training grounds, so everyone suspects that it is again the work of Amatsukami." Kuroto frowned when he heard this. In the past, if a clan member was not seen for a night or two, then it was not that big of a deal, but now the situation is completely different. Whether the village, the Uchiha, or other clans, they are all on very high alert under the threat of Amatsukami. And the fact that Uchiha Haragi was not seen for an entire night, he did not even come for his assigned duties. As such, there was only one conclusion: the shameless and bastards of Amatsukami have again acted against the Uchiha clan, and this time, they kidnapped Uchiha Haragi. The reason why Kuroto frowned was another reason. It wasn't difficult for him to relate the disappearance of Uchiha Haragi with Hiroko's Kekkei Genkai absorption plan, but what surprised him was this change. In the original series, Hatake Kakashi was Hiroko's target, and Kakashi was also marked with the puppet curse of Hiroko. As such, Kuroto initially thought Hiroko's target will be Kakashi, but it appears that's no longer the case, but when Kuroto thinks about it, it does seem reasonable. In the original series, Hirako was not part of the Akatsuki, so he was obviously unwilling to deal with the Uchiha clan, so Hitaki Kakashi, who was a non-Uchiha, and yet had the Sharingan, became his target because stealing Sharingan from Hitaki Kakashi would have been much hassle-free when compared to the other Uchiha shinobi. But here the circumstances are different. Hirako has joined Akatsuki. He is obviously not afraid of some Uchiha clan, so he would obviously target a full-fledged Uchiha and try to obtain the complete Sharingan Kekkai Genkai. As such, Uchiha Hiragi became the unlucky prey. Or is it that the person who came to kidnap Hiragi intentionally did not target Kakashi? Kuroto thought, someone was able to sneak into the village and also kidnap Uchiha Hiragi without alerting anyone? Even in the Akatsuki, only Obito should be able to accomplish such a thing. And if Obito was indeed the attacker, then the chances of Hiragi's escape were obviously zero without any question. Regardless of all that, Kuroto can now be sure that the Kekkai Genkai that Hirako is targeting are pretty much the same as they were in the original series, with Storm Release, Swift Release, and Sharingan confirmed. The other two Kekkai Genkai will obviously be Dark Release and Steel Release. Hozuki Castle, the scene of Second Gakage Summit. A bounty nin organization like Amatsukami, composed of missing nin, appeared in the shinobi world precisely because of the incompetence of you all, so obviously you all should be responsible for this. Roared Yondaime Reikage as he smashed his fist on the wooden table in front of him. Ice current was past the level of tolerance, and his roars continued to be echoed the walls of this prisoner castle. The previous attack not only caused the Yondaime Reikage to lose two of his powerful Jonin ninjas, but also lose Kumogakure's face and his own prestige as a Kage of one of the 5 great shinobi villages. With his violent temper, it is obvious that he is very furious at Amatsukami, but unfortunately, there is no method for him to vent his anger on the bastards of Amatsukami. As such, the Kages of other villages became his targets, because Amatsukami comprises of missing nin from their villages. Sandaime Tsuchikage Inoki snorted softly. He had a look of disdain towards the Yondaime Reikage, who couldn't even control his temper. Inoki's snort obviously didn't go unnoticed by the Reikage. Turning his head towards the Tsuchikage, I glared at him and spoke. I have yet to completely settle accounts with Iwagakure about the assassination of Watanabe. I suspect that your Iwagakure is connected with Amatsukami, and you are secretly supporting them. Otherwise, why would Amatsukami take Iwa's issued mission and assassinate our head ninja in Konoha? Listening to Reikage's accusation, everyone's eyes turned towards the Tsuchikage. Tsuchikage was unperturbed. What Amatsukami? We Iwagakure have never even heard of them until now. Even if Kumogakure wants to frame us to cover up your incompetence, you have to first bring a shred of solid evidence to prove your conjecture, otherwise, your accusations are nothing but complaints. Come on Reikage, do you any evidence? The already furious Reikage was more furious, and blue lightning chakra cloak subconsciously appeared over him. It was extremely violent and threatening. Tsuchikage was also not afraid. He floated in the air, eyes stern. Dazzling white light started to emerge in between his hands as if he was ready to start whenever the Reikage wants. Kumogakure and Iwagakure are old enemies. Sandaime Reikage died because of Iwagakure's betrayal, and almost 10,000 IWA shinobi dies in the hands of Sandaime Reikage, so the parties will obviously not settle such hatred so easily. As such, it has not even been full 5 minutes since the Gakage summit commenced and Tsuchikage and Reikage were already pointing blades metaphorically at each other's throats. With Reikage and Tsuchikage ready to go at it, everyone in the room got up and raised their guards. Cough cough. At this time, Shimura Danzo, who did not speak from the beginning, stood up, drew everyone's attention towards him with a cough, and said, "Everyone, I propose to hold the second Gakage summit so that we can peacefully sit down and discuss how to efficiently deal with these emerging bounty nin and mercenary organizations like Amatsukami and Akatsuki. So let's let go of our previous hatred for a while and commence an effective." As Shimura Danzo was speaking, Reikage suddenly interrupted him midway. "Who do you think you are? Why has Hokage not come to the summit, and instead chose to send one of his subordinates to the summit?" Asked by Reikage, everyone's attention also shifted towards Shimura Danzo, waiting for his answer. However, Shimura Danzo was silent, as if a cat got his tongue. Nothing he could say would amount to anything. Why? Because he is not the Hokage. Shimura Danzo expected to be able to represent Konoha in the Gakage summit and hoped to convince the other 4 Kages to form a joint coalition with Konohagakure as the head of the coalition to fight against the threat of Amatsukami and Akatsuki and gain huge prestige for him by doing so, to replace Hiruzen as the Hokage of the village in the future. However, Reikage's cold words that did not have even an ounce of respect or patience made him suddenly realize that he, Shimura Danzo, may be the consultant elder of Konoha, leader of the root division of the Umbu department. He may be the second most powerful political authority in his village, but here, at the scene of a Gakage summit. For the shinobi world, he is nothing but a subordinate of Hokage. At this moment, Danzo hoped from the bottom of his heart that he was the one wearing the Hokage hat and the Hokage robe. He bore the title of Konoha's Hokage, could speak for Konoha. The deeply rooted ambition of becoming the Hokage was burning in his heart. Sighing lightly, he suppressed all kinds of thoughts and said with a firm voice, "If Reikage and Tsuchikage want this Gakage summit to become a ridiculous farce, and the name of the 5 great shinobi villages become a laughingstock for everyone, then please continue with your petty conflicts, I have nothing more to say." Reikage also knows the purpose for which this Gakage summit was organized, and also understands the consequences of behaving in an unrestrained manner in front of the Kage and representatives of all the other great villages, so he suppressed his anger and deactivated the lightning chakra cloak. Tsuchikage also did not continue anymore, and slowly descended back to his seat, but his face had a slight unsightly expression. Followed by Reikage and Tsuchikage, the others also sat down one by one. At this time, Reikage picked up a file and scattered documents before the other 4 representatives. "Look at these documents for yourself. Amatsukami and Akatsuki organization is filled with missing nin and Kekei Genkai users from your villages." Kazakage Raza picked up the file and frowned after reading the content recorded in it. "This is impossible. Even in my village, apart from me, no other shinobi has mastered magnet release, let alone someone who has mastered magnet release and defected." Tsuchikage sneered coldly, "This magnet release user of Amatsukami might as well be the missing Sandaime Kazakage Dano." After having read the document, Inoki is again full of confidence as neither Amatsukami nor Akatsuki have any member who was a shinobi of a Wagakure. As such, he can freely taunt others. Kazakage Raza spoke with murderous intent, "Tsuchikage Dano, I hope you understand the meaning of your words." Elder Chiyo, who accompanied Kazakage Raza to the Gakage summit said, "It has already been confirmed that Sandaime Kazakage-sama has been assassinated by the missing nin Sasori, who fell to the wrong path and chose to join the Akatsuki, so please be mindful of your words Tsuchikage Dano." In fact, Suna's leaders have long suspected that their previous Kazakage who has gone missing has somehow died, otherwise, they would not choose the next Kage. However, they were still unwilling to release this news to the public for the sake of reputation. But in the previous fierce battle that Suna had with the members of Akatsuki just a few months ago, Sasori personally confessed to having killed the Sandaime Kazakage. As such, it is no longer possible to hide this, so Chiyo decided to announce this news on behalf of Tsunagakure. Karatachi Yugura, the Yonde Mizukage of Kirigakure, and the Jinchuriki of Sanbai, read through the documents, and spoke after a long silence. "There are no ice release users in Kirigakure now. The ice release user of Amatsukami probably left Kirigakure even before I became the Mizukage, as I have never heard of any shinobi of the Yuki clan have such strength that he can go toe-to-toe with Sandaime Hokage. As for Biwa Juzo of Akatsuki, he also left Kirigakure before I became the Mizukage." Reikage said with a dissatisfied tone, "All you lot are doing is shirking responsibility." At this time, Shimura Danzo said, "Regardless of who these shinobi are, or whatever their past affiliations are, what we cannot deny is the threat they pose to the world of shinobi and the 5 great powers. More so, when Amatsukami has openly announced that they will start targeting the 9 Bijou, so instead of our petty conflicts, we must focus on how to eradicate these organizations as soon as possible. Targeting Bijou is definitely hitting the sensitive nerves of all the major shinobi villages." The first one to agree was obviously the Reikage, who deeply understood the threat of Amatsukami. "I agree." The young Mizukage himself is a Jinchuriki, so he also agreed without much hesitation, seconded. After a bit of thinking, Kazakage also nodded, "I also agree." Seeing that the overall direction has been set, Tsuchikage also nodded, "I have no objection." Now that all 5 villages have unanimously agreed to deal with these emerging organizations, the 4 Kage and Shimura Danzo discussed the specific matters including the encirclement and suppression of these organizations. However, it has not been very long since the Second Great Shinobi War ended, so the distrust between the various shinobi villages is too deep. Neither of the shinobi villages has been pushed to their bottom line, nor was there any declaration of a war against the entire shinobi world, as was the case in the original series, so Shimura Danzo's proposal to establish a joint crusade was immediately rejected by the Kage of various villages. Danzo was obviously angry, but he was also helpless, so all he could say was, "Someday, you will all regret this decision you made today." The 4 Kage looked at each other, but neither of them commented anything. In the end, the result of the Second Gakage Summit resulted in a joint agreement that the 5 great powers will each be responsible for the encirclement and suppression of the activities of these emerging organizations within their own countries, and will also share any and all intelligence involving Amatsukami and Akatsuki. Outside Hozuki Castle. The masked man quietly stood on a tree, supporting his back on the tree stem, and looking at the distant island where the Hozuki Castle is located. At this moment, Zetsu's figure emerged from the tree trunk and said, "The Second Gakage Summit seems to have been concluded." That was fast. Masked man muttered in surprise, then immediately asked, "What did they talk about?" Zetsu spoke, "There are too many censorine all around the Hozuki Castle, moreover there was also something that was constantly absorbing chakra. I was unable to figure what that was, but regardless, I was unable to get too close to the meeting room, as such I am unaware of what topics they discussed." The masked man nodded and asked again, "How long until they start returning to their respective villages?" Zetsu said, "They have already started the return journey, the fastest raikage is no longer in Hozuki Castle." The masked man nodded and was silent for a while. It is undoubtedly the best choice to intercept one of these kage and intercept them on their returning journey. He did not consider raikage and Suchikage, because both of them are not easy to be captured, therefore, masked man thought of the current Kazekage and Mizukage. As for Shimura Danzo? Masked man didn't even bother to think about him. Keeping the ambitious as he is will only stimulate Konoha's internal strife and induce more infighting. By not being under control, Shimura Danzo would do more damage to Konoha than when controlled. Now that he was left with only 2 targets, the masked man asked, "Who are the guards following the Kazekage?" Zetsu replied, "The puppet master Chiyo, and the commander of Sunagakure Umbu Department, Pakura of the Scorch Release." Dealing with 3 Kage class individuals will be a bit troublesome, especially Pakura with her Scorch Release. Shaking his head, the masked man asked again, "Who are the guards of Mizukage?" The Kazekage has already made several attempts to eliminate Pakura, the threat to his reign. But every time something comes up and Raza is left with no choice but to postpone Pakura's elimination into the future. The first time was because of the urgent request by the Miko of the Land of Demon. Raza was left with no choice but to temporarily give up his thoughts and sent Pakura to the Land of Demon to assist Miko-sama in her conquest to save the world by sealing the demon Morio. For the second time, when Raza had already planned out the cleaning arrangements of Pakura and was about to implement them, he was again left with no choice but to put them on hold as the Ryumyaku was suddenly stolen. For the third time, not long ago, he has just made up his mind to clean up Pakura, but it just so happened that the Sasori Crusade force that Suna had just formed encountered several members of Akatsuki, and in those consecutive fights, Sunagakure suffered a heavy number of casualties, again leaving Raza with no other choice but to put away the thought of cleaning up Pakura for the time being. Therefore, Pakura, who should have died as a part of the negotiation between 2 nations, and to ensure the reign of the Kazekage not only did not die but became the current Umbu commander of Sunagakure, and the Kazekage Raza who has been trying to clean her up for so long might have never thought that the only reason he is alive and not became a prey to the masked man's planning is because of the presence of Pakura of the Scorch Release as his guard. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kayashin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips, Yami Tancho, Kenny Nielsen, Harold Martinsons. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be here until next time.